Okay, welcome. I'd like to bring the Planning Commission work session of July 22nd to order. Heather, if you call the roll.
Mr. Granger?
Here.
Mr. Boswell?
Here.
Mr. Klee?
Here.
Ms. Macbeth?
Here.
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Mr. Schaller?
Here.
Mr. Charlie?
Here.
Okay, and so today's meeting, we have two chapters that we'll be seeing for the first time. And for those of us who are in the audience here, at the end of each chapter's presentation and then discussion amongst the Planning Commission members, there'll be a time for an open forum if you wish to speak, and so I'll turn that at each time. So there is an opportunity for you to speak if you so choose. No pressure to do so, but if you choose, just so you know where we're at. So we'll start with Chapter 12, Transportation. Carolyn?
Yeah, so what I did is basically, this is an update of the existing chapter. We have a chapter in the current ordinance that's called Infrastructure, and we agreed to separate that at the beginning of the process by having a transportation section separately, because most individuals had a hard time finding roads and that kind of information in the infrastructure section. So what we have today before you is the breakup of the whole chapter into two chapters, and we'll start off with the transportation chapter. So the first, I'm not going to go through all the wording or anything on the slide. I'm going to hit the highlights, and if anyone has any comments or concerns on that slide, it's basically following along with what you got until we get to the map section that I had the streets with the maps. I made those bigger because I didn't like the way it looked. It looked too cluttered and you couldn't read them, so you'll see it in the PowerPoint presentation. So on this first slide, it's basically identifying the road classifications. What is an interstate? What is a principal arterial street? What is a minor arterial? What is a collector? And what is a local street? That basically follows what we currently have in the comp plan. It's just some wordsmithing I did to it a little bit to tweak it. So if anybody has any concerns on that, Andy had a couple of typos, not typos, that I fixed on that. So the overhead reflects that. And to start off on this is the James City County and York County and Williamsburg did a transportation study with the HRPTO. So I included that study with what you got. So it goes into real detail about all of these things that you're seeing in these. And it goes for the whole three jurisdictions. So it's similar to what we did at the last comp plan, the 2013 comp plan. They did that study for us. So they agreed to do it again this year. And what you have in your packet is the final draft. I believe the final draft went to the full board for approval this month. So once that comes back to me, I'll include it and send it to the commission members. I don't think there's going to be much changes to it.
Carolyn, I did have just a question about the introduction, saying that a lot of this comes from this joint committee and that a copy is available for review at the planning department. To me, this seemed sort of similar to the other reports that we got from sort of external partner agencies. And I thought for most of them, they were actually being electronically provided as like an appendix to the thing, not some of a separate thing. Is that possible to have that link?
Not
there?
a problem. We can make that an appendix. Okay, I'll make that correction. Anything else?
Thanks.
Righty. So existing streets, basically, this talks about our existing network in the city. It talks about the radial streets being Henry, and the traffic patterns around this city are constrained and somewhat for normal cities because we try to go around the historic area. So this talks about that. That's coming right out of our existing comp plan. And then the second paragraph is basically talking about what we've done since the adoption of the comp plan, which is, as noted here, Battery Boulevard's been completed, Prince George Street and Armstead Avenue reconstruction has been completed. York Street corridor improvements were completed. Parkway Drive improvements were completed. Second Street improvements, Ironbound Road improvements. So those are the things that have been done by the city since the last comprehensive plan. So that's basically just giving an overview of what's been done in the last 5 years. Any questions on that page?
In the 2013 comprehensive plan, you had a map of the city.
Yes,
Color
I'm going to put the
coded.
map in here.
Is that going to be in here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm falling behind on some of the maps with GIS. GIS just had to do the big switch over in the property information that you're seeing on the web.
I know.
So I'm a little behind on getting the maps out of that, but I should have them in the next draft. And
Okay.
yeah, I want to put the
So is that new
maps in.
GIS program supposed to be an improvement? I don't know if anyone's been in there to look at things. It's really difficult to find things.
Yes, I agree.
It takes some,
Getting used to.
yes.
Get a class?
So that's where you see you'll see a map go in here, and also in the next one, there's going to be a map there that shows you these principal lane miles. So they'll be depicted in that also. So basically we have just over 125 lane miles based on the 2017 VDOT figures, and that table 12.1 gives you the breakdown of those lane miles, and as you would expect, most of them are local lane miles with very little freeway, expressway, interstate. That's the little section we have in 199.
That's expressway with an X, right?
Carolyn, were you done, Jay? Yes. Yeah. Carolyn, how difficult would it be, or is it somewhere else already that I'm just not recalling off the top of my head, a total amount of bike or multi-purpose lane miles?
I think we got bike in the further into the section. So there's a bikeway section in here. I think I had lane miles in here, but
It might be
we'll look for it.
interesting if it's appropriate to have it both, because I think it's a nice thing to accent.
Yeah. Most of our, I think we did do a GIS map on the different types of bike miles, the shared path, the multi-use path, and the on-street, the road path. So yes, I can, I think
Our
it's-
bike lanes are a lot to be proud of, so I think
Yeah.
maybe putting that up there right with that as contrast is a nice thing.
And I
Okay.
just had a question about the lane miles calculation. If 199 is a 4-lane road, a mile of it is 4 lane miles, right? So we have about a half a mile of
Right.
199 in town.
right, it's just that
Great.
small little section, yes.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, it depends on how many lanes you actually have, and they add up together for lane miles.
And Mr. Boswell already pointed this out, and maybe Mr. Edwards too, but expressway,
Yes,
okay,
I put a
great.
mark by it.
Would
Then
it
on
be-
this
oh,
page,
sorry.
if no one, you have something?
Sorry, I just
I'm
have
sorry.
one other item, and it's actually related to what you're about to scroll over to, but you've got text on page 12-3 talking about our relatively low increase in traffic from 2007 to 2018 compared to the surrounding counties.
Right.
And I thought that was really nice to note, and I'm wondering if it would be worth, though, noting the handful of roads that have had, there are the handful, Richmond Road to York County line, for example, had a slight increase. I wonder if it would be worth noting those ones as a way to just, if someone's just looking at the text, to kind of call out where we should be looking in the sort of near term as well.
Well, I actually wanted to address that too, but I was going to wait till we talked about the table. There's an issue with this data, which is the caption on page 12-3 uses 2001 to 2010 as the period of growth, and then the subsequent table uses 2007 as the baseline. So I think we just ought to be consistent from one section to the next, because it's ultimately not really helpful to compare a 9-year period that begins in 2001 to whatever this is, an 11-year period that begins in 2007. And related to that, and now maybe we should go to 12 table 12-2. Using 2007 as the baseline for traffic in town makes it look like we've been in a period of decline. And of course, that's not the case in terms of growth in the community, but it looks that way if you look at this table, and if you're not really thinking about what was going on in 2007 and how much visitation there was. So I'm not sure if 2007 is the right, let me put it more forcefully. I think 2007 is not the right baseline for determining the increase or decrease in traffic over time in this region, because I'm sure if we looked at a graph, 2007 would be a little blip. Now, not a huge one and not as big as any of us wanted, but nonetheless a little blip. So the change from 2007 to 2018 in traffic around town looks like traffic's getting better for whatever reason. So there may be some evidence to support that, but I feel like using 2007 as the baseline year is distorting the figures in a way that isn't maybe helpful. So the follow-up question to that is this data that we can simply choose what year to use, or do we have great data for 2007 and great data for 2018, and that's why we've used those 2 years for this table?
Yeah, the 2016 to 2018 is the latest traffic counts for
Yeah.
the city.
Okay,
They do them usually every 2 years.
okay.
I was looking to see what was in the existing. We have 2001 and 2010. I don't know if 2010 is,
I'd prefer to see us use 10, I think. I mean, 2001, that's 20 years ago.
That's not really relevant.
And
if you like, I can switch the 7 to 10.
I think that would be more helpful.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah, when you go to that chart, I had some highlighted as far as streets that had lost a lot of
Yeah,
percentage.
yeah.
As you can see, I highlighted the ones on the map, but it's probably not worth going through that if I'm going to change that table.
Well, and I assume those ones will be ones that are in the center of town where there was a lot of activity because we had a lot of visitation. And so visitation is lower, but that's the reason for the decrease in traffic, not because there are fewer people living in the community and fewer cars in general on the road. So I think if we want to see the trend over time for planning purposes, picking out that one special year is probably not the right year.
Yeah, I think that's what they had in their study, PDC study, is where that number came from. But I can pull the 2010 and take that out and put the
That'd be great.
2010
I think that
numbers
should
in
be more
there.
helpful to
Yeah, I could do that.
trying to make sense of this. And then sort of to go back to Mr. Scholler's observation, I think the caption that's on page 12.3
Yeah, update that
should use
based
the
on that
same,
data.
right, years for comparison.
Sorry, I'm just taking a note on there so I
Yeah,
remember
no,
that.
it's great.
Makes sense.
All righty, so this slide, basically, the Hampton Roads Transportation Organization does the 2040 Long-Range Transportation Plan, and that was approved in 2016. And they're actually in the process now of updating the plan for 2045. So that should be done in the next year or so. So as part of the long-range transportation efforts, they forecast traffic volumes and peak hour congestion levels. And these volumes are modeled on output from the regional model, which estimates the raw traffic volumes based on socioeconomic projections. The level of service determines the congestion. So as you know, low to moderate congestion is a level of service A, B, or C. Moderate is a level D, and severe is a level E. Williamsburg contained one roadway segment in 2010 with severe congestion, and that was Jamestown Road between Lake Matoka and College Corner. They predicted in the 2040 that Lafayette Street would have severe congestion in 2040 between Richmond Road to York Street, Monticello Avenue between Ironbound to Richmond Road, and York Street between Lafayette Street to the city line. As we know, Route 199, has severe congestion because you can see that in peak hours in the morning and afternoon, depending on which way you travel in that. So other than that, this is just basically updating the information that's in our current comp plan.
I just wanted to call into doubt, or rather maybe just ask for a little more information on a road I drive every day, at rush hour every day, which is the one that's flagged as severe, Jamestown Road between Matoka and College Corner. That's not the worst traffic I encounter on a routine basis at all. So I'm just kind of wondering, it causes me anyway, to kind of question some of this other data.
Well, you-
Anecdotally, Lafayette, Monticello, and York, you know, between 5 and 6 or peak times a day all seem much worse to me if I have to travel on those roads. I sit through a couple of light cycles. But Jamestown between Matoka and College Corner is a dawdle unless you get, you know, a parade going across,
Well, yeah.
students or something.
You got a lot of students, but then again, you know, there are no traffic lights.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I don't understand that.
It doesn't feel congested to me.
Never felt
And
congested.
certainly not the most congested stretch of road in town. So I guess I'm just kind of, I'd like to hear more about what the measure is that.
Are there traffic
how this is
counts? I mean, it
calculated.
seems like
Yes.
there's probably a lot of little zipping in and out of traffic in that stretch.
It's based on
right?
the traffic counts, but I can ask the
Yeah.
traffic engineer
Yeah,
the specifics on that.
it's
But
just a
as
little
much as
hard to
I'm not
swallow.
in favor of having lots of stoplights, I definitely have felt at times like we really could use a stoplight at lunch hour.
Yeah.
When you're trying to go down Jamestown Road
Sure.
and every,
That's right.
15 feet is somebody crossing the
So,
street, and so you're
yeah.
sitting there in a car like, I'm never gonna get where I need to be.
Yeah, fair enough. So there may be moments when it's rough.
I think if you
and
go
there's a lot
back
of
to,
students
yeah.
crossing.
Classes.
But still, that's just a little stretch of that road,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Well, if you look at the traffic counts, they are projecting from the city line, Jamestown Road, 21,000. From John Tyler to Boundary, 11,000, and from Richmond Road, let me see, John Tyler to Boundary, 11,000, Route 199 to John Tyler to 21. The city line to Route 199, basically 21,000. So I think that may be why, but I can ask further on those counts.
Yeah, I guess there's whatever the definition of congested is, there may be a mathematical definition that doesn't necessarily line up with my own experience of driving that street. And if that mathematical definition is going to cause us to think about widening roads and that sort of thing, I don't hear anybody suggesting widening Jamestown Road. But I can see us making a decision about a road to widen, that we want to widen based on data that, again, isn't, for me at least, lining up exactly with reality. Those other 3 streets clearly have problems at certain times of day. But other than what we've all experienced with maybe a lot of students walking across the crosswalks in a little 400-yard or 200-yard stretch of road, other than that, Jamestown's pretty agreeable.
I would think that the success that we have in that road there is mostly because there aren't a lot of large intersecting roads. It's a good through road, so it can handle the volume of traffic that's on it, as opposed to some of the other roads that have a lot of major roads turning on and off of them. So I think that's where our success comes from, and I agree that if it's based on the definitive size of the road and the car count, then we need to take a good hard look at whether we're going to call that congested or not. But it seems like it's working well there, because the biggest problem is students at the change of class.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see, depending upon when these traffic studies were taken, that there's significant difficulty in taking a left-hand turn, either out of Ucrop Way or out
that's
from the
true.
side streets. I mean, like,
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of ease, but then there's also a good
Yeah.
amount of backup if you're doing what you need to do.
Going left off of Ucrop.
You know, and
That's
left-hand
true.
turns are definitely difficult to get, you know.
Anyway, so potentially a minor thing, but
I think it's a small-town problem. This is the big problem for our small town.
that's right. I had to wait for 2 cycles of that light. This town.
Okay?
All right.
So here's what I did with the maps. What's in the packet is they are a lot smaller. So what I did was put each street on a page
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
So
that
instead of it
helps.
being like this
Yes.
all
That
together,
helps
each
a lot.
street's on one
Yes.
page?
Oh, that'll
cool.
really help.
Yeah.
That you could really see the improvement area. Because I looked at it with my eyeballs and go, if I can't see it very well, how you, even though you can blow it up on the screen, I think it just looks better with making them larger. So what I did is, each of the sections, I did one page and put a new map on them.
Good.
So Capitol Landing Road, this is a section that starts with our transportation improvements. So the first one up was Capitol Landing Road. So that's the section between Merrimack Trail and Bypass Road, so I highlighted it in red. That we currently have funding to improve that. We were about at the point where we were going to have the neighborhood meeting to talk to the citizens and businesses that live in that area from a city standpoint and get input as to what they wanted the street improvements to be, whether it was going to be a sidewalk on one side and a multi-use path on the other side, the street trees, the lighting, whether there was a road reduction like we did similar to 2nd Street, if citizens wanted to see that, where you had basically a center turn lane and in and out. So that, once we get through this pandemic, I hope we will start that process and start construction on getting design work for construction on this.
So this is money that's earmarked for transportation, so if there's a budget shortfall someplace else, it can't be swept over, so it
Right.
has to be done for this.
Right. So we've gotten funds basically from the state and the HRPDC to do traffic improvements.
Just a small thing, but in general, is it easy to put a north arrow on these maps?
Sure, I think I could do that.
Okay, I think that might help just orient. It took me a minute.
It's a process. I've been doing these at a pictometry, which the images are great, but you got to go through about four steps to be able to put that little bit of information on there to equal this map. So each one of them takes about an hour to produce.
Really?
Really?
Well, if a north arrow adds another hour, don't
No,
do it.
no, adding a north arrow is not going to add it.
Marker if you have to. We'll bring you a Sharpie.
So the next one is the intersection improvements at Bypass and Capitol Landing Road, and I just did that as a big circle and put it in there, and that's looking at plan for construction in 2024 at a cost of $2.1 million. So I think what we're looking at, is it a T intersection or is it a roundabout? So that's to be determined. Right now, I think it's looking at a T intersection coming bypass straight to Capitol Landing Road instead of that swoop that's currently there.
My comment on most of these, Carolyn, have
Yes.
to do with traffic calming techniques and pedestrian safety.
Right.
That obviously the 2nd Street improvements kind of made traffic slow down there. Sidewalks are generous. There's obviously at 4 lanes, Capitol Landing, to the extent it has any traffic, in my observations, they exceed. And so that would be helpful. And as far as pedestrian, getting around that intersection there from that side of the street, there are no crosswalks on Capitol Landing Road.
Right.
It's dicey, to be fair.
Yeah, I talked to Dan Clayton, the Public Works Director, and he said that they look at all of that when they design the street based on when they redo the street. One of the things he has to be careful with is especially putting crosswalks in the middle of blocks. They don't really work. We did it on Richmond Road in front of Cookout. And after we put the crosswalk in the middle, remember we had the islands? A young lady got hit due to the crosswalk because the person couldn't see her in the island. So we ended up taking the crosswalk out. He said there is a list of criteria as to the number of crossings pedestrian crossings as to when you install a crosswalk, that a lot of times when you just put crosswalks in without that information, that individuals aren't used to it and seeing nobody in the area, that it becomes a greater hazard to the pedestrian than not. But I've got your comment, and what I'm going to do is write up a little section in here about pedestrian crosswalks and bicycles, and do a generic big, keep investigating and determining if, he said they do studies all the time. They did a study actually of the one that you mentioned on Lafayette Street and Capitol Landing Road. And the number of crossings did not warrant putting the crosswalks in, so that's the reason.
There's a sign there that says pedestrian crossing, but there's no crossing.
He said sometimes they add those signs to let people know that it's ahead without putting the crosswalk because it doesn't warrant the crosswalk. And so that was a result of the study. He put the sign up that says that to watch for the pedestrians, but I think
And my observation is they don't.
yeah.
And I think, I mean, and in redesigning that intersection, especially now that, I mean, the Hampton Inn is a pretty well-used hotel. I mean, obviously, in historic times, there's a whole string of motels there. And, I mean, that I do know people who go there and expect to be able to walk to Colonial Williamsburg and to be able to get through that intersection without any guidance at all, I think is pretty
Right.
dicey.
I think the whole intent of doing Capitol Landing Road is to make that area more vibrant.
Yeah, oh, sure.
So I think you're going to probably see crosswalks probably at the bypass, the T intersection at that light.
Yeah.
You may see it at the Parkway Drive, depending on the uses, crosswalks there. You try to do them at intersections. That's where it's the safest.
Yeah.
And then maybe somewhere further down along in there. But I think that's all part of looking at that street design and seeing what, not only what's there today, but what the build-out in the future is going to be, because you're going to want individuals, if you want to make this a more pedestrian-friendly area, to be able to cross the street safely from one side to the other.
And with the build-out of the condo townhouses on Parkway
Right.
Drive, that's a whole nother population
Right.
that wasn't there.
Right, and they've, the improvement we did on Parkway Drive for the townhouses up to there is a big improvement, and they're very appreciative of that. They said that's made a world of difference of them being able to leave their neighborhood and go into some of these businesses on the street.
Yeah, and as it relates to crosswalks, I mean, the obviously the flashing ones on or around campus are good because you can see, but I have to think that there are other types of things that can light crosswalks. I just think of College Corner there. If I'm coming home late at night, although it won't happen this year, but coming from the law school after teaching, it's hard to see. And I don't necessarily think, it's not my job to think that, but that a flashing light is helpful there. But lighting along those crosswalks where it may be a flashing light doesn't warrant would help unsuspecting drivers. I don't know. But it's not conducive to pedestrian friendliness.
Yeah, one thing on Richmond Road and Jamestown Road last year is the city did go and change out the light fixtures and the lights to help with that.
It made a difference.
That cost, that concern raised by students also. I think the student assembly, that was one of their major concerns was the lighting on Richmond Road in that section and Jamestown Road. So I think that's helped. But,
It has, yeah.
and I think the college had lights in the trees over top of that intersection, and they were cut. So we were looking at ways to lighten that crossing there.
So while we're on this topic, we mentioned traffic calming and such. I was going to talk about it on the next page, but we're here. So on John Tyler Lane, they have a speeding sign. And then on Jamestown Road, they have one as well, which tells you your speed. And I've scratched my head because apparently we only have people who speed in one direction on those roads. And I can't imagine that the cost to have the camera pointing in both directions be twice as much. I mean, we've got the post, we've got the solar panel, and I just think if it's worthy of trying to deter people from speeding in one direction, it's probably worthy of trying to do it in both directions.
You would agree those have been effective?
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah.
I know it causes me to look at my.
We drive the same road, so.
Yeah. And so, in locations where those are deemed, I think it would be nice to consider having the speeding camera point both ways to remind people neither direction is appropriate to speed. Unless the cost is punitive to do that.
Yeah, I know there's criteria to establish that, and there's a policy, there's usually a study on the street, they talk to the neighbors, those types of things is when those go up. But I'll ask Dan that question and see what his answer is, and get back to you.
So the directions that they currently are facing are when you have a higher limit.
Yep,
and you're
coming
going
to a lower limit.
Lower limit, and they're
Right.
like, heads up, or you're
Right.
not making it. So the other one is to say, we're not yet at that higher limit, stay down.
That's correct, because usually you're going from a high speed to a lower speed, and the individual doesn't reduce their speed even though the speed has been lowered. So that's the reason I think they're going in that direction. But I can ask Dan and see
Well,
what
it's
he
made a
says.
big difference on the Jamestown Road because that's a downhill too. And you can just take your foot off the gas and, you know, pretty soon, you know.
I expect I'll be at the speed limit by the time I get to the top. I've worked
You're going
off the
back up the hill.
speed.
But I see people hit brake lights, you know, hit their brakes all the time when they see that sign.
Yeah, because that's, to me, that area of the road could use the Second Street treatment. Doesn't need to be a 4-lane road there, but till that happens, this is a good alternative.
Ironbound roads. So basically, Ironbound Road, Phase 1 was done, which was the intersection improvements at Long Hill and Ironbound Road in front of the school.
Right.
So Phase 2 completes 2 and 3 completes the improvements which are scheduled for 2024. And they include the underground wiring, the widening, the construction of finishing the multi-use trail that goes around from the rec center and through the school. So those are projected to be done in 2024, and on the map, I basically just highlighted that section of Ironbound Road from Richmond Road over to Depew Boulevard. The next one is Lafayette Street. So Lafayette Street is scheduled for construction in 2028. And the improvements include the side street improvements for sidewalks. And this is a complete reconstruction of the street for new sidewalks, underground wiring, bike lanes, and street improvements. So that basically starts at Bacon, where the road narrows down, and goes down to Harrison Avenue. It's more, the worst part is, as you all know, is up by just past Width up to Bacon, where they're parking on the street. So that's a projected cost of $4.3 million. So that's looking to be done in 2028.
I know it's a little further up from there, Carolyn, but you know where the sidewalk ends, just past the gas station. So you have to cross over right at the gas station. So you're on the Chesapeake Bank side of the street, it ends, and then you got to cross back over. So there's that empty parcel, has no sidewalk, but that's where, so if you're coming from Monticello, cross Richmond Road, there's no sidewalk once you get past the gas station.
Right. Right.
Would that be part of?
That will probably be part of the intersection improvements in Monticello. That's in one of the other slides that I'll show you.
Before we leave Lafayette, I think we talked about this before, and I can't remember what the response was, and I'm sorry for that, but there's not a lot of room curb to curb there for a bike lane, some improvements, the improvements that are talked about, wider sidewalks, and all the parking. So is the upshot, nor is there room really to widen the road because there's buildings right up against.
You lose the parking.
We lose parking in both directions or in one?
It's only in
It's only in
one
one direction, so
side
we lose
right
all
now.
the off-street parking. So a lot of those are rental properties without a lot of off-street parking.
Where are they gonna park?
That-
Lots
that
are big enough
anticipated
that
to
they
be a
can park
problem?
on their lot if they,
Okay, okay.
as you can see, you can see they're pretty deep back in here.
Yeah, yeah. I presume they're parking
Right.
on the street because
But
there
you're
isn't-
correct in that if you're going to put sidewalks on both sides
Yeah,
and bike lanes, I think we're looking at possibly just doing the multi-use path on one side, because that's your bike lane,
yeah,
which would connect to the multi-use path on Monticello Avenue.
okay.
So you won't have bike on both sides of the street. But I think you're right, you're going to have to
Something's
do
gonna have to
something with the
give.
parking.
Yeah, okay, so it's the parking is what we lose.
So I mean, I don't know whether it's north, south, east, or west, but on one side, the houses are like right there on the street, and on the other side, by the train track side, they're set further back. So there's no, I was always envisioning in this street that there was some sort of a X number foot easement that the town could just, the city could just say, okay, well, that's our easement, we're taking 5 feet off of your front lawn and keeping the parking, but it's already so tight, it's just gonna lose
Yes.
the parking.
Most of, on the With Delaware side, they face those streets. There's a house or
They face the
two
side
that
streets.
faces the other way, but not that many. A majority of them face the side street.
Oh, right, but the
Yeah.
side of the building is like
Right.
right
It's still
there,
pretty
right
close.
there.
Right. It's the ones that are adjacent to the train tracks that
Yeah.
basically are using the parking on the street. So that's something that will be looked at with that construction and street design. So that's more to come on that one. But that's a necessary improvement. If you remember back in the other section, it also talked about Lafayette Street being severe by
Yes.
2040. So these improvements are going to be important to
Oh,
in
no,
Lafayette
it's
Street.
tight now, and there's always a fear of someone's in one of those cars gonna,
Absolutely,
throw
yeah.
open a door as you're going down the street, they're right there on the, but in terms of having a community meeting with the people who live on that
Yeah.
street,
Yes.
I don't envision that to be a very jolly meeting.
Yes. I think it's important too that with the lot of rentals on there,
Yeah.
there are a lot of crossing. So I think getting the cars off the street will also help with safety of pedestrian crossing.
Yeah,
Very much so.
Because we had a pedestrian hit a year or
Oh.
so ago up on
Right.
Lafayette Street.
I wonder with the volume of trees that are on there right now that are close to the road, how many of those are going to need to come down?
A lot
And
of 'em.
if there's any ability to go ahead and start planting some new trees a little further in the line so that we can get them established a little bit?
Well, it's hard to do that when you're doing a road construction, especially when you're doing underground wiring, because anything you plant, you're going to end up affecting once you start digging for the wiring and so forth.
Okay.
And it's hard to know where things are going to go until you design and get Dominion to approve where the actual lines and so forth go. But yeah, it's going to be quite a different, a lot of those large trees are going to be removed for this reconstruction.
Okay.
I mean, it's no way of, might as well be honest about saying that. And then Monticello Avenue, what I did is I did 2 maps. I did one for the trail, which is under construction and should be finished hopefully by September. And then the other one for the actual road improvement in front of Midtown Row and the intersection improvements at Monticello and Richmond Road. So there's really 3 pieces here. We've got the trail, the street construction, which is, a lot of it's done. Basically, what's holding it up now is the intersection of Richmond Road is moving all the utilities so that we can get that turn in and get that section completed, but it's moving right along.
Carolyn,
And
is it, I'm sorry. Is it Monticello all the way It's the cities all the way up to the light at Ironbound?
No,
Does it stop?
no. The city line stops just about at Trayburn.
Okay.
As far as the street.
That's what I meant, because,
Yes.
you know,
So
again,
Campus
talking-
Drive, all the way out to Newtown is VDOT. That's a state route. We have properties, there's a little bit of James City County that comes up in there. College Woods, of course, is in the city. And this area in here is in the city, and we show that as economic development even. This area here on Ironbound Road that fronts. But yeah, we stopped somewhere along in here. Trayburn is a county road here, and then that goes out as a VDOT road.
Trayburn's County Road?
For that intersection it is, that light's in the county.
So, yeah, because that's what I was going to comment, as well as traffic calming. You're going from 45 to 25 now. People don't do that. Running along there in the morning, I stopped because it's very quick at that. By the time you get to that intersection, people should be going 25 and they're still going 40.
And I think that was one of the reasons for the multi-use trail, was to get a safe pedestrian bicycle area off the street with lights, because of the speeds on that section of being 45 miles an hour, and to have the students to have ability to walk from campus to Newtown and to other businesses in the city at High Street and.
Right, and High Street, you got to cross that
Right.
street, and
Right.
so, okay.
So we're looking at a roundabout possibly up here at the Richmond Road and Monticello Avenue with a start date of 2028 with a projected cost of $6.3 million. That's just for the intersection improvements. And I think that will address your concern, Mr. Tarley, about the sidewalk on the other side
It looks like
of
it
the
comes a
street.
little bit outside that circle, but we'll see.
And then quarter paths, of course, highlighted in red, the Redoubt Road, the section that's not built yet. So that is to go all the way over to quarter path. And then I highlighted the section in the middle, which we show going to a multi-use trail. So from where the road almost, the pavement ends now, to Quarter Path Crossing Shopping Center, that middle section will become a multi-use trail that'll come across the dam and the pond there. So that's been in the plan for quite some time.
What's the time frame for the Redoubt Road?
The road, it depends on development in Quarter Path at Williamsburg as to how this road gets built, because we can't really cut that road off until this road is built, because then that gives you the path to go through there and go back out. So then, once that's completed, this section's completed, then we can cut the road off and then make that a multi-use path. And then there's multi-use trails and so forth all along the back in here of I call it Riverside Quarter Path, and along the street also is a multi-use path along Battery Boulevard.
I know they've constructed up to a certain point and
Yes.
stopped.
Well, they stopped there because that's where they don't have any development on the other side. So they're looking, once someone comes in and decides, I think they're basically concentrating in this area right now to finish that out. I think sometime this year you'll probably see an extension of more in here. I don't know what the scale of it is, but it seems like they've been doing Redoubt Road in like rough quarter-mile segments as they build out the next layer of townhouses, and now they're the next layer, that's, I think, independent homes that are coming in now. They basically built the section you see down to here for the pump station and so forth in there. They had to get that far anyway. And so they went ahead across the ravine, I believe now. And then they stopped, so they've got that infrastructure that far in.
I've not been that curious to drive.
And then traffic signals, I figured I'm gonna do a map here. I was gonna figure out how to do traffic signals and lights on the map. So that's what I wanna do here, to show all of the traffic signals will be updated. So you have those flashing yellows that you see everywhere else around the area when you go. And then we've got two projects on Lafayette Street, basically, the Lafayette Street Armstead Avenue and Lafayette Street Henry Street signal improvements, and that's to update those traffic signals altogether to include the left turning areas and so forth. But I will put a map on here showing the traffic signals, I hope, throughout the city, and just highlighting the two on Lafayette Street. Then this section just basically talked about Interstate 64 briefly. That's coming right out of the existing plan with some updates. As you know, we've done, even though Interstate 64 is not actually in the city, the segments are important to the city for tourists traveling to the city. I will do some kind of map to put over here. I haven't quite figured that one out because it gets so small that it's hard to even read, but I'll add something in there. So we've got, basically the 2 phases are done. The 3rd phase is under construction. The funding for the 4th phase, which is to the New Kent line, hasn't been allocated yet. And then we've got the 16 or 17 mile section in New Kent County that's outside of our jurisdiction that needs to be done to complete it to Interstate 65, Interstate 95. But a lot of this funding was done with the tax money that was done through HR TAC. Now we get to the bicycle facilities. So we updated the bicycle facilities. I have actually sent this to the Historic Triangle Bicycle Advisory Committee. And guess who is the chair of that now?
Someone who likes a bow tie?
Former staff member.
So he has put his eyes on this and has blessed it.
Okay.
So basically, this was just updating it, is tell you that we do have a Historic Bicycle Advisory Committee. That committee meets quarterly. We had one actually Monday night. Bicycle facilities are basically the multi-use or shared paths, the bike lanes, and the shared roadways. So I think that was a question earlier, is there a map that would show that comparison? So I'll see if we can get that for you and put that in here also.
Is it possible to link sort of how you're planning to do now for the transportation plan document to link to this bikeway plan as well, maybe in the appendix or even just a physical link to it?
Sure.
Great.
So here's where I thought I remember the numbers were in here. It's been a few months since I did this chapter. There are 49 miles of shoulder bike lanes, 42 miles of multi-use paths, and 115 miles of shared roadway facilities in the 3 jurisdictions. So basically what I identified in here are the critical gaps for us as far as bikes. So Capitol Landing Road to Merrimack Trail. And a question I had for the commission on this is, would you like a map to show these like I did with the roads? Or do you think this is enough that you don't need it?
I think it would be helpful,
Maps are always helpful.
because I'm trying to put in my mind, now I know.
Uh-huh.
Where are you talking about on Lafayette Street to Merrimack Trail?
Right.
But
I think it's something, I thought about it, I think it's something we know because we deal with it every day. But if I was a visitor and looking at it, they might not know what these sections are, and that's why I think those maps I did are important to individuals when you're looking at the plan. So I'll do that for all the sections. And then, of course, the second one on here is Ironbound Road to, that's the multi-use path that be built with the Ironbound Road improvements. So that's basically changing the title on that one and adding it. I mentioned the Quarter Path Road, one previously. The other one, major one in here is South England Street, the Country Road. So that's the connection from the Capitol Trail to the Birthplace of America Trail. So basically that comes through and down Monticello Avenue, goes through campus, comes down Jamestown Road, swings over the Francis Street, and then it's supposed to go down South England Street, down all the way down the Country Road down into the county and crosses over and keeps going down towards Grove. We just did a study of the the Capitol Trail, and we came up with about $3 million worth of revenue that comes to the area just for the Capitol Trail. And what they did is they took they did a study and had students sit at Jamestown at the shelter, and they were interview individuals if they were visitors. They didn't interview locals that were riding the trail, and they asked the individuals that were visitors where they were from, were they staying the night, if so, about what they spent on their trip. So they took all this information, and we came up with, I think it's like $127 a person for the visitors who ride on the Capitol Trail. So we think the extension of the Capitol Trail and the boat trail through the city and going down to Fort Monroe is an important, another draw to the city for visitors. There are folks who go the Capitol Trail that go from Richmond, come to Williamsburg, spend the night, and then go ride back the next day. So we think these extensions of the bike facilities are very important. So unless you have any questions on that, I'll just briefly go over the bicycle improvements.
Well, I do. Are these in any order of importance or just listed?
I don't think they're important. Some of them are already under construction.
Because I'm referring primarily to the Strawberry Plains, John Tyler Lane one.
Yes.
Which, in my mind, it's long overdue. I drive that road
Yes.
many times every day. I would bike it, but I'm not that courageous. But there are people who walk it for work or for whatever. And I know there's a plan underway to do that, to make those improvements along there. But once you end at around the entrance to the Midlands, there is no pedestrian safety that whole way.
Yep.
In the wintertime, 5 o'clock, it's dark.
And
Can't
it's
see
40 to 45 miles an hour, that whole stretch.
That's another
That's-
traffic calming area in my mind. It shouldn't be 45, it shouldn't even be 40. So I'm just shocked that there haven't been more pedestrian.
Well, part of the problem with that one is the Strawberry Plains Road is not a city street.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's different, there's
Even though that
jurisdictions on
development
either
is.
side of the street. One side's
Yes.
Williamsburg, one side's Jamestown
Yes.
County.
Yeah,
So-
so that's, because I just assumed
Right.
it was because that's. the
That's a
city.
VDOT street. The city put the sidewalks in, as you saw, in front of the new development and down past the school. I will say that we have in this year's CIP money to do a study on trying to get everyone to agree the extension of that sidewalk needs to be done all the way so that we can get to Jamestown Road, basically, because it needs to go to Jamestown Road. So that study, the funds did get approved in the CIP, so I would say later on this year or maybe the first of next year, depending on the pandemic on when you can start doing these kinds of things, that study will look at how do we get that improvement done. Because you're going to have to deal with VDOT, you're going to have to deal with probably the county, and you're going to have to deal with William and Mary, because the college owns a major stretch of the woods there to be able to expand it to go down into there.
Yeah.
It won't be easy, but I think it's to everyone's benefit.
And the number of
that we do
students
that.
who live in Governors and Midlands and stuff like that, I mean, it's certainly gonna have student,
Right.
student assembly support to the upper administration to get a sidewalk there.
And once you get past John Tyler, if we have just, if nothing else, if just bike lanes, shoulder bike lanes to Jamestown Road, that'd still be a major improvement, I think. If you don't have sidewalks all the way to Jamestown Road, that would be the best, but at least a bike lane from John Tyler to Jamestown Road, and then finish the multi-use path to at least John Tyler, I think.
The path would be great, because that intersection the intersection coming off of 199 is treacherous in a car, let alone in a bike.
Yes.
And even, you know, you've got that wide section of John Tyler, but then when it narrows, I mean, I run that. I keep an eye out because, yes, I've got 2 feet, but you don't know what somebody's doing.
Yes.
And that's really a major connector.
Yes. Right. And we understand that, and that's why we're willing to
I didn't realize
put the
there were
money
that many challenges.
to do a study to see if we can get agreement from all the parties, because it's not just, if it was a city street, it'd be much easier to do, but it's not a city street, it's a VDOT street, and you've got James City County that the city line is the street line. So the improvements will probably be on the county side of the line, and I think they're all in favor of doing multi-use trail improvements and so forth too. It's not that, it's just getting everyone together, coming up with a design, and then getting everyone to agree to do that design, and then potentially go and ask for funding to help pay for it, because it's probably not going to be cheap. A bunch of it in there is pretty steep ravines that are pretty close to the street. And then to finish it off, we are a bronze level bicycle friendly community. Much to Reed's chagrin, we're not a silver. I think we can attain silver once we do those improvements that we're doing on Monticello Avenue. One of the dings we got was because we didn't have a lot of multi-use trails. So we think with the multi-use trail on Monticello and the cycle track in front of Midtown Row and the improvements we're doing in that we think we have a decent chance of going to silver the next time we submit. And I think they do it twice, 2 submittal dates every other year. So if we can get those done this year, I think next year is a submittal date, and we will try to see if we can get silver designation.
So the graphic that for me is helpful when we're looking at the bike lanes, I mean, with the roads, we had individual graphics for each segment but for me, it's much more helpful to see like the whole city and all of what we have that's good, like in gold, and these gaps in like red that highlight how we'd have so much more improved connectivity if we had these connection points instead of individual. If you're going to do a graphic here, instead of doing individual graphics, I think that global one is more helpful for me.
Yeah, maybe with one color for the multi-use trails or the sidewalks, another color for bike lanes, and then
The red,
for the proposed
But-
issue.
Because I mean, I think it's also, it shows what we have and then how much better things could be if we're willing to make this investment.
All right, let me see if I think she did.
I think
I might need to break it up into different sections of town,
Yeah,
because I think it gets,
Yeah.
when you
it'd be
take
hard
the
to
whole
read.
city,
Yeah.
the lines get so,
so tiny, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I
you
think
might-
I've seen
I might
something
wanna
like that. I
do
kept on
like-
scrolling back thinking, didn't we see something? And I was like,
I'll see how, if maybe I can break it up and then it makes some sense, because otherwise you're gonna see little teeny skinny lines that aren't gonna mean much. But I'll see if I can do that. And then this talks about the pedestrian facilities, and of going to do that map for the pedestrian facilities. The same type of map you just mentioned, with where the existing sidewalks are and where the gaps are. We filled in a lot of the gaps. The major ones left now are the ones that are really expensive and hard. Example is that one little piece on Merrimack Trail. The connection to, from Port Ann to the Oaks is another one. So in all of those, we've listed a lot of them on here. What we have done is we've done a lot of improvements. We've done the Merchant Square Daily. Compton Drive is going to be done with, the state did get funding for that. So that'll connect from the new one on Monticello Avenue into campus to the existing sidewalk. So I will give you a map with the, and I'll do it probably in red for the gaps to give you the same so they both correspond.
In the CIP, there was a mention of one on Newport, putting a sidewalk in there and perhaps
Yeah.
to Griffin. Is that still around?
There you go, Andy.
Okay. Thought I'd ask.
Red.
Did you
You
mention?
mentioned that, so.
You mentioned something on Lafayette between Capitol Landing. Is that bike or? Because there, I mean, there are gaps on Lafayette from
Big ones.
Light.
Right. Right. We're always trying to fill the gaps. The new sidewalk, mainly on Lafayette, will be with the reconstruction of Lafayette Street down at the other end.
Other side.
Yeah.
There are gaps there and that you don't notice till you're on it, and then there isn't one.
That's not a place to go. And in building out the new sidewalks, I mean, those sidewalks are like 1950s sidewalks or something like that. It feels like they're 3 feet wide, or are we looking at like 4 foot or bigger sidewalks to have more,
When, usually if they've got the right of way to do it, if they replace them, they usually replace them with 4-foot sidewalks. That's our standard now. And usually there's a gap between the sidewalk and the street if at all possible. The little grass strip.
grass strip, yeah.
And the reason the grass strip is there is to make people walk and feel more comfortable that the traffic's not
Car's not right there.
next to you.
It's effective, because when you're on that wall sidewalk there on Lafayette,
Yeah. Yeah, the section of Lafayette Street that's missing is probably, another gap is, I want to say from the Parkway to, which you said Confusion Corner.
Yeah, from the tunnel.
there's a part there, and there's that right at the Bruton Heights crossing, which is another one of those
Right.
crossings that is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Stops.
I've had to jump at that one a couple of times.
I mean, it says pedestrian crossing, and there is one, but that's another one, those with people drive faster, significantly faster than 25 miles an hour. But they're right at that point, there is no pedestrian for about, I don't know, not even a little lane.
I think there are bike lanes there, they're just not
Yeah, they're kind of
sidewalks
narrow,
there.
but there are lanes for the most part.
Okay, well, I'll note that on the map. Then we get to the public transportation, which is WADA, and basically that was just updating, giving you a little more information on the existing routes. So those are put in there.
And at this point, we haven't received, there's a question at the end of this statement. We haven't received any more information about continued diminishment of services as we've been.
Yes. What I suggest we do is, at our next month's meeting, see if I can't get Zach to come and give the commission an update on routes and, it's one other thing, frequency. I knew it was one other thing I wanted to remember. especially, I know the WADA's getting ready to do their comprehensive plan update. Basically for them, it's called another document. And part of that is they will look at the existing routes, because there are some routes that have good attendance and some routes who don't have good attendance. And the routes were basically routes that were done many years ago when the system was started. So now they have a transportation planner on staff, and they actually have counters, so when you, automatic counters, so when you come on the bus and off the bus, they count you now. So they have really a whole lot better data than they had years ago. So they're using all of that to look at their existing route systems and then determining whether they need to change routes, whether they need to change frequencies. And changing frequencies may not be for all routes, but certain routes that, say a downtown route to Midtown and down all the way over to Newtown and in the High Street, you might want to do more frequency just on that route. If you could come up with a route where you could do 15-minute turnarounds, and then people would use the bus more. But if you do 30 minutes and an hour turnarounds, people are not inclined.
Right. And it seems like with the pandemic, most of them have gone to hours, 1 hour, once an hour kind of frequency. And I mean, for me, it's just, obviously, we're in a oatmeal. We don't know what's going on here, But this part of our transportation piece is so critical to not just simply this chapter, but economic development and downtown vibrancy and all these other kinds of things. So, yeah.
So my suggestion was maybe to have him come and explain the routes and their thinking and their process better to the commission next month.
Sure.
And you can express your concerns with the route frequencies. And I mean, he's hearing it all the time. Right now, they're not charging anybody to ride the bus, so you can ride the bus for free. But like you said, they have cut back on the routes because there aren't any passengers.
Sure, understood. Yeah.
And the hours. The hours used to go to 10 or 11 o'clock. I think now they're quitting at 8 o'clock because there's no riders. So this is basically information that I had him look at. Just their data. They have 300 stops, 50 shelters. They're trying to add more shelters. Shelters cost somewhere between $16,000 and $20,000 to install.
And
They're all prefabricated for the most part? Is there a, okay.
They looked at a new model that has lighting in it, so it has solar panels on top. So if you stand inside of it, it lights up. If you don't, if no one's in there, it cuts itself off.
Oh, cool.
So those are pretty cool. But yeah, they're looking at, I mean, it's all funding. I mean, you have an organization that gets a majority of its money from federals and then state and then some from the localities, but it's, it's into the buses and paying the drivers and those kinds of things. The ridership one didn't come through. You've got it in your packet. When you go from a PDF to PowerPoint, it wouldn't copy that chart. But you got it. So you've got from 2006 to 2019 riderships basically.
Is it possible to make that match the nice color scheme that you've got for the document? I don't know if it's your graph. If it's not, I realize
Probably
that's
his
not.
graph, but I can tell him to.
Okay.
I happen to sit on the board.
Oh, okay. That's an easy fix then, hopefully.
That helps.
So basically, they continually, you probably noticed, we've recently got a whole lot of new buses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They put a lot of miles on those buses. So the new buses are pretty cool. We got the 2 trolleys. They're buying some smaller vehicles for some of the routes that don't have a large capacity, but they have ridership that needs it, so they're buying smaller vehicles. One thing that people, when you do routes, is one really nice service that individuals have is the WADA is required to provide service to Americans with disabilities. for individuals who are located within a 3/4 mile radius of any fixed route. So if there are individuals who need accessibility, they'll come pick you up within 3/4 of a mile of route and take you to your destination and then bring you back. So that's a really
Wow.
fabulous service.
So, I mean, and so like,
They do.
if you're like off the artery of Jamestown Road, I
Right.
mean, Richmond Road, actually, there's this big arm on either
Right.
side of anyone in that area, yeah.
Right, and you think in the county, when you're going way up into the upper part of the county and so forth for some of those rides, now that is the most expensive,
Sure, of course.
that they lose the most money on, but it's a fabulous service
Oh, yeah.
to individuals who can't get around. And then basically the passenger rail was just update that little section similar to what was in the current plan. And with that, that's the transportation. So if you got any additions, anything else you want to discuss to be able to put in there, I'm happy to.
Does anyone have anything else to add? I mean, I think that we have changes of dates and some graphics and hearing from WADA. I mean, I think those are all the great inputs for me for what would produce then draft 2, obviously. Any other big pieces that people are thinking of? I mean, guys. Okay, well then we've had an hour and 10-minute discussion on this part of the chapter. I think for me, as a takeaway, having transportation pulled out of infrastructure is huge, really makes it much easier to access and understand and is appropriate, so I think that's really great. But if there's nothing else to give Carolyn now, and obviously in between now and next day or so, if anyone thinks of something, you can always send something to her. I'll now open the open forum. If anyone in the audience would like to come forward and speak about our transportation chapter, come forward to the microphone, please, and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Ron Millis, here with my wife Tessa. We live, muffled a bit, we live on the corner of Millneck Road and John Tyler Lane, also known as the cut-through to most local people. There's really limited businesses there. There's just that one professional center. Most of the traffic on John Tyler Lane, not to be confused with the highway, is not from the neighborhood. And most of it is, in my mind, is not going to the professional center. It's simply a cut-through. It's not, I don't believe it's pedestrian friendly, and applaud the efforts for the multi-use trails and any traffic calming items. So that's great, and looking forward to the multi-use trails. Since it's not pedestrian friendly, I would ask that we don't do anything to encourage more traffic, although it's identified as a collector road by your definitions up there. So more traffic calming would be great. Certainly, let's not encourage any more traffic there, with the exception of the multi-use stuff. That would be wonderful. Else? Oh, I would like to thank the local law enforcement. They've been very helpful anytime we've had complaints. I'm not used to chewing gum, talking, and wearing this mask at the same time. And sidewalks, if it's to be considered in the future, would be nice too. I think they, in and of themselves, have a calming effect, and since it's primarily residential, as I mentioned before, and you guys know that, they would be appropriate. So, with that said, thank you for your efforts, especially with regards to multi-use and traffic calming there. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward, or does that cover it for the family? Okay, cool. Okay, so then that will conclude our open forum with regard to the transportation chapter, and we'll look at what is gratefully at this hour a much shorter chapter, the infrastructure chapter.
And this is probably an easier one to update, the utility chapter. So basically what I did in here was just update the information in the existing chapter of the comp plan, so you can see what the plant treats, and all of these were verified by the Public Works Department. Unless you have any questions, I'll probably add a couple of more pictures to this. This one is probably closer to being finished than the previous chapter, but there's not too much updating in this.
Yeah.
Changed it to HR green from HR wet. That's a name change. Changed the gallons in there, and that's all verified by the Public Works Director.
13.4, you say garbage collected door to door,
Yeah, I
kind
changed
of
that.
curbside.
I changed that.
Oh, did you? Okay, thanks.
See it, Andy?
I don't see it. Oh,
Look on the, I know on,
It's been updated since you.
oh, it's up there, okay.
yeah,
All right.
yep. Good catch.
We still have the program that if you are elderly or
Yes.
enabled, that they will,
Yes.
right, yeah.
They're very good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, for me, I think we feel that we have a little bit more power over the thought of giving guidance of where we might need sidewalks or trails
Right.
or something like that than the utilities.
Yeah,
but-
one thing we did add, though, is this section, the wireless communications. So I added cell towers, small cell, and wireless facilities, and also solar facilities. So we did add those. Those are new, and and the last page was the electric car charging facilities, and we were trying to figure out where we want to put that. Did we want to put it in infrastructure, or did we want to put it in transportation? And we ended up putting it here. And if you guys think it needs to go in transportation, we can move it over, but it seemed the wireless communication definitely needs to be there. It's the electric car charging, and as a matter of fact, we've got our first one going to ARB next week in a private car charging.
Like, where's that going to be?
Be on Pilot Park in the wall. It's very,
And that
What is
goes, that's sort of like street furniture,
yeah, it's probably like that big.
but it's just, it's somebody's house. They
Yes.
just put- It's going to be visible from the street, so they have to get it reviewed.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
Visible from the street.
Wow. Wow.
So I think we're going to see more of this, so that's why we just put
Yeah.
this little section in. And as you can see on this map, where the city already has charging facilities, that's what this map is reflecting.
Are there none on, I guess there's none on campus, are there?
President's house.
Yeah, I mean, there are private ones, and there are private ones in the city that I know of, but they're in people's garages and stuff like that.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, I'm talking
that's a
about public
different
ones.
situation. But yeah, the President's House has one.
Visible from the street.
That is visible from the street.
But it's
Does the
a Tesla.
college have plans to install any? I mean,
I'm
that's-
thinking
it's a
that
pretty
there,
common thing
I'm
for-
thinking that there's a place where there's some share ride car spaces that have electric I don't know.
I'm only asking for the sake of the map. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
think of any off the top of my
Yeah, well,
head.
there's one in the lodge parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, they're
The
def-
CW Lodge
CW
parking
Lodge
lot? Oh, that's
parking lot.
true. That's
There are
true.
some-
There is one at the lodge.
Yeah.
Occasionally
That should
works.
be added, that occasionally,
Yeah, the city ones are free.
yeah, is
yeah.
Those
Yeah.
one at the lodge, actually.
that right?
The ones in the parking garage. My brother
Yeah.
came up with.
One's on here, the parking garage one.
Right.
Well, the ones in the, there's also one in the lodge parking lot. In
That's what I thought. we were talking
Caswell. Caswell Wing has one inside.
about. Oh, there's two more to put on here, in
Two
other
more,
words.
yeah.
So if you
So
know
are
of
you
any,
saying that maybe we should have that half a page of electric car charging facilities maybe in both transportation and infrastructure? Because it affects the
it's
transportation.
just a matter of copying it, yeah. it could be
But
done.
also as part of the infrastructure. But I mean, I definitely know, my husband, for one, would like an electric vehicle. And I look at these maps and thinking of where we have the tipping point that's going to actually be something that would be viable. So I think
Right.
having it in both.
Yeah, I think that's.
So I've got, you told me to add the lodge and Tazewell to the map?
Yeah, check on
And
Caswell. I
if
think
you've
that was
got
still
any
open. That was
more,
a
You think of
120
more?
volts, so you gotta be there a while.
If you think of more, shoot me an email and we'll add them to the map. Maybe I'll change the color for private ones.
Yeah.
Good idea.
More private.
I think in that same grain, there might be an argument then for moving the connected and automated vehicles either into transportation or doing the duplication as well, because it seems to be much
Yeah.
more related
I figured
to-
I'd take the whole page.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes the most sense then,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's all I have.
That's Sarah's house.
Okay.
Are there, I guess as I was trying to skim through some of my notations of, were any of these things relating to different reports that should also be appendices, but I don't have any notations on that. Other parts for utilities? So we actually have a draft that does need, of a chapter that doesn't actually have to come back for a second version. I think that it's like a hallelujah moment. Cool. So, the family from Milneck has left, so we don't need to have an open forum since we're all talking freely as it is and there's no one else here. So what is our game plan in the months ahead? How will, as long as the virus doesn't come back and we have
I
to
wish
go-
I had a crystal ball.
go back into a hole, is there a thought that this might get concluded by December, February, or
Yes.
something like that?
The answer is yes. Next month, I hope to have you if we're meeting here, and if not, I'm going to try to talk Chris into letting me do a virtual.
Okay.
Will be the economy,
Uh-huh.
and probably we can have the water representative. And if I can get this transportation done between now and then, I will, and have the second draft of that.
Yeah.
And
I-
then I
that-
think we're just basically down to finishing up the drafts based on our comments, because we've done them all then except land use, and land use is not, it's totaling up everything and
Right.
putting it into the chart, so that's not really something that's going to need a lot of discussion. So then we'll get you, I call it the final drafts of all the chapters, probably a certain group at a time, really quickly, and then if we don't have any changes to that, go for public hearing. So being, what was this, comp plan work session number 23?
So this is comp plan work session.
23, right?
Yeah, yes, number 23.
Seriously?
Yes,
It's about time to finish this up, don't you think?
yes, and we'd like to finish this up while Jeff is still around and, be a signature to something that he spent 23 plus
That's right.
work sessions working on. Okay, cool.
But I mean, it's all,
I mean, if we have to go to a different level of community engagement, I think that everyone has been able to work well with these online meetings,
Yep.
and we're even getting enough community input that I think that we should just soldier through versus being
Yes.
put on hiatus for 3 to 4 months or something like
I
that.
agree.
Okay.
No one wants this to be finished any quicker than me.
I'm sure there's other uses of your time that are waiting to be taken already.
So,
Okay, so, there's no need for a public open forum at the end of this. Is there anything else that anyone needs to add for the benefit of everybody? Thank you, then we stand adjourned.
these things hanging in the chair catch you in the back of your eye, and it's like someone is sitting down there behind you all of a sudden. It's like, who's that?